welcome to this episode of Canines Talking Sense. I'm your host, Cameron Ford, and on this episode, we're coming to you not live, but in Australia. So, with that said, on this trip, our first stop was doing an international detection dog trainer school. And the guest I have on is somebody who we've been friends with, what now, 5-6 years, maybe more?
I think about that.
Yeah. But without any further ado, since you guys can see her, welcome Ilse Duineveld?
Ilse Duineveld.
Duineveld,
in
yes.
Dutch.
In Dutch, yes.
But in Australia, they sometimes call me Ilse or Ilsa, so I stick with Ilse. So.
Yeah, that's kind of what I started calling you, Ilse, because they were all calling you Ilse. But
so
well,
just go with it.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for hopping on here. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on is because you have such an inspirational story with all that you've done in your life and how you got here. And you did it the hard way. You did it as a civilian. You were doing things that people said couldn't be done, or they've always said, well, if I'm not police, I'm not military, there's no way to get in here. So tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how you got to the point as you are now, because you're an owner of your own business, Canine Bellator International here in Australia. Is that correct? Yep. So give us the journey that you had from being in Holland to now being a business owner here in Australia.
It's quite a long story because when I first started, I thought that everything was too hard. So when I grew up a little bit rough. So my parents were fighting a lot in the household. So I didn't do well in school. And then after school, I started working. And then work was not really what I wanted. I wanted to go into the army, but my mom said, why don't you do tourism? So I started doing tourism. I didn't like that. Then started working again. And then I just thought one day I want to work with animals. So I wrote a letter to a school and I said, can I please, work with animals? Can I be taken into the study? And they took me. And that's where it started. And I think you had podcast with Natalie from Send Imprint for Dogs.
Yep.
And she told a similar story. And when I heard that, I related to that. Because in the Netherlands, when we do animal care or animal management, it's a full-time study. And then during that time, you need to do multiple internships. And those internships can be 3 months on end. And it's just full-time work. You're not certain if you will do that internship because there's so many other people that want to do that internship. Mm-hmm. So I thought the Netherlands is so small. Let's focus on a different species. Let's work with monkeys. So I wanted to go up abroad and I always wanted that. So then I focused on primates. I went to Chile, worked with monkeys there. But the monkeys were okay, they would rip my hair out or throw a brush through their cage or get really angry with me. But there were stray dogs there. And the stray dogs, they lived around the cages and there were 30 of them. Wow. And I just started working more with the dogs. And I said, I won't take a dog home. And then one day I took a stray dog home that I found outside the compound because the lady told me I need to put it in front of a supermarket. And then a couple of weeks later, it was on its way to the Netherlands in the airplane underneath my seat. It was one of the hardest things I've done back then. And her name was Flo, and it's Dutch for flea because she was covered in fleas. So really original.
Yeah.
And then when I got back, I did another internship with monkeys in the Netherlands. And then I was like, no, I need to work with dogs. So then I went focus on the Brede police in Amsterdam. So I worked in Amsterdam with the police there, with the police horses and dogs. Mm-hmm. Then I started going to Twickleveld, doing a detection internship there. Then I pursued more detection internships, which then rolled into my job.
Okay.
And when I started doing that, I just worked really hard, worked long hours. My bosses would go to different countries on holidays and they left me with 18 detection dogs. I worked operationally. I cared for them, walked them. It were all pointers and Malinois. So that was my first exposure to real working dogs. Mm-hmm. The first day I did my internship with the pointers, they broke my front teeth. Oh. So they ran into my face. And that was my first day. And then after that, I just kept going. And now I own pointers. But that's the way how it goes. And then I worked in Amsterdam for a really long time. So I did look for chemicals with the dogs. Mm-hmm. I needed to crawl into containers that came out of Madagascar or South America, and we crawled in there with the pointers when it was just opened up. So you sometimes didn't know what you were going to find, but and you need to be careful that you weren't getting headbutted by the dog.
And what were you looking for in the container specifically?
So we were looking for chemicals in cacao beans. So what happened was that sometimes the containers were used for motor parts, and sometimes they were used for food, and in between they were cleaning it with chemicals, and if they didn't clean it the right way, the chemicals would get into the cacao beans. It would come to the Netherlands, then Lindt chocolate would buy those cacao beans and it would go to the factory. So therefore we need to search all the cacao beans with our dogs, and it was in a really high industrial area. So when I started there, I did not know how to train dogs. I was a handler, so meaning that I understood how to teach dogs how to find odor, but I didn't understood why. So for a really long time, I was a handler. So, and sometimes I think now in the days when you have handlers, there's a gap between becoming a trainer or a handler. Sometimes the handlers, they know how to work a dog, but they don't understand how they got there, the theory behind it. So I was during that time, I was in how I was taught how to train my dogs was in a harsh way. And over time, I wanted to also train my own security dog. So I trained my Malinois. And that's where I was taught prong collar on the dog when they were 6 months of age. Wow. And when they need to go on it down, you just need to push the dog onto the ground. And that's where I went on my mission to train my dog, because I wanted to get my certificate for patrol dog with my Belgian Malinois, and therefore I needed to study to become a security officer. So that took me 2 years. And I did that in the evenings while I was working as an operational detection dog handler and training my dog. So every free time I had, I took my dog throughout the country and took it to different clubs. And then I started pursuing more with the dogs, because anything that had to do with working dogs, I wanted to do. So then I found myself on a course for a SWAT team from Abu Dhabi, and with the arresting from the Netherlands. And then we traveled to Germany and Belgium. And I think sometimes what people forget is that opportunities don't fall in your lap. You need to chase them, and you need to ask for opportunities. So if you have your dog, you need to put your hand up and be annoying. And just go after it, because these opportunities are not just there to pick it up and it will happen. It doesn't. And then so I went through that whole period, did many other things, and then I sent emails out throughout the whole world, because I wanted to go abroad, and I felt it in my bones. I wanted to work overseas, but didn't know how. So I sent emails out throughout the whole world, like, will you take me on? Even if I'm a volunteer, I'm happy to work. I just want to work with dogs, and it doesn't matter to me what it is, as long as it's working dogs, detection or patrol work, anything like that. So what happened then was Australia replied back. I had multiple replies, and some were a little bit dodgy. And then
I can imagine.
and then from Australia, they asked me, can you send us police dogs? I didn't know how, but I said, yes, I can. So that was on, I think, New Year's Eve. In the morning, I met with a big vendor in the Netherlands. I said, I need to send dogs to Australia. Can you help me? And he said, okay, I've never done it before, but we're going to make it happen. So 6 months later, dogs were in Australia. And then the company asked me to come over to Australia, and I did. And I felt on cloud 9, because then they offered me a job the next year. And I just recently earned my certificate with my working dog. So I was an operational patrol dog handler with my dog in Amsterdam. I left that job, the detection job, because I felt I wanted to learn more. And sometimes when you're stuck in your own agency or wherever you work, the knowledge is limited. And when people start keeping you small and they say, I don't understand why people want you there, or it's your time to go. And that's what I did. And then, because I vividly remember my boss back then saying to me, what does Australia want with a girl like you? And so I went to Australia. They offered me the job. I came back. I went through a really challenging week because some personal stuff happened in my family. And but I went through it on a Friday afternoon. I was sitting in my car and I thought, I've got everything what I got. Everything is perfect. I've got my job lined up next year in Australia. I can bring my Malinois. Everything is good. And that evening I was working and a ball rolled. My Melly was running and she slipped and hit her head and died.
Oh,
so that was the dog
no.
I trained for 2 years, poured my heart and soul into it. And she just died on the job. And I was just like, and I remember me ringing people like, oh, my dog is dying, my dog is dying. And then the police came out, they blocked the whole road off, and it was in the red light district in Amsterdam. And the police came in and they said, oh yeah, that doesn't look good. And while my dog was dying in my lap. So when that happened, that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me, because it was just like I poured my heart and soul into this dog, and this dog was my everything. And I accomplished so much with this dog. So the months after, I thought, I want to work again with dogs. Shall I get a pup? But I didn't feel ready for it. So I kept working in the security world and found myself doing really high-risk jobs for a while. And then in December, I thought, okay, I'm ready for a new dog. So I messaged Australia and said, are you guys willing to take me on still? Because otherwise I will get my next dog and train my next dog up. And they said, okay, next February you can come. So that's when I flew to Australia, and I only had $500 in my pocket and I had nothing else. I had no dog anymore because my dog passed away, and I was scared and didn't know what was going to happen. But I was just like, okay, if I'm here for 3 months, then I had a good time, I learned, and that will be enough for me. But here I'm still, so it's now almost 9 years later.
Yeah.
So
hell of an adventure and a hell of a trust into the process, into kind of letting life take your, like you said, you make the joke all the time, Jesus, take the wheel when we're talking about training the dog sometimes.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, you're like hanging on for dear life. But I mean, it's amazing how sometimes certain things in your life you can't predict will happen, but then what opportunities it creates, as hard or as difficult as it is to go through that moment, on the other side is another opportunity that grows you as a human being, as a dog handler, as a trainer, and so forth. I want to dive into a little bit of, because a lot of people don't understand, to become a handler in Holland, you have to go through the same training and certification as the police dogs, correct?
So there is a bond for the Dienstland in the Netherlands. So you train your dog up and you do it privately. So you either work with a group of people or you do it yourself. I don't know if it's similar still, but when I did it the first time, I did with my dog in 2015. So my dog needed to find small articles in the field, and my dog needed to find big articles, so what they can use for a burglary. My dog needed to be quiet when someone was trying to break in, and my dog needed to be proper heel work and be quiet. I needed to put a person on transport. And walk behind the person, and it could be a decoy with a bite suit on. My dog needs to be under control next to me and follow this person. I need to go around the corner of a building and someone attack me. And my dog needed to bite once at a full grip. Then I step back and then wait for the examinator to point to me, and then I need to call the dog off once. Once the dog is called off once, I look at the examinator. They say, okay, you can get the dog back in heel. The dog will go back in heel. I need to do a building search with my dog. I need to have my dog run next to the bicycle, do loose leash walking, walk on a slippery floor. And one of the things they also need to do is be in a lineup with other security dogs or police dogs, and they need to lay in a down, and you need to go out of sight. So you have all these dogs, they hate each other. They need to be 2 meters away from each other. And you don't want them to move their arms or their paws. So they need to be all laying still there, and you just hope that they don't move. And I remember that day when I was, when my dog got it, I thought I was on top of the world. Because once your dog just makes that certification, it's so amazing, because you work so hard for it and you train so much. And even when I did the training, we always trained at always the same scenarios, and the dogs were predicting it. And I remember going to a stage where me and the decoy, we started being different. So we started doing the whole scenario and dissecting the scenario and working on her out from the bite suit. And I remember that they were laughing at me and was like, oh, why would you do that? Why don't you just go over there? It's just silly what you're doing. And it's just, they just mocked me for that because they thought it was something so silly and stupid.
Yeah.
And I also remember one day I was needing to do a building search, and because you always listen to your boss, because you just follow your boss. And I was going up the stairs and I knew that my dog would pull in the prong. And I was almost in tears because like, oh, if my dog will do that, I need to correct the shit out of my dog. But you just listen to the person above you.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
And I think sometimes, and I don't know, a lot of people won't see this type of world because everything has changed, but it might still be in certain agencies. And when you speak up, you're not right, or you're not. And sometimes it takes a while before you can see in that it's not the right way to train, and it's okay. And you don't need to stay stuck or stay there because you can grow and separate yourself from that. So, yeah.
Wait, are you looking for an opportunity to become a professional detection dog handler? Do you already have a fully trained explosive or firearms detection dog? We want to hear from you. Come join us at Stratus K9 and go visit stratusK9.com. That is STRATOSK9.com. Fill out a job application with us. We will review that application and be in touch with you. We look forward to having you join Stratus K9 and be a part of our team. Was there anything, so what, obviously, how long was that journey to get for your training, to get certified? How much time did that take?
For me, it took me 2 years.
Okay. And like you said, that standard is if you only get 2 chances to pass certification?
Yeah. So you do, you can go twice with your dog. If you fail twice, then you're an unsuitable match.
Okay.
And then you never can train again with your dog or go up for the certification with your dog.
Okay.
So you feel the pressure too.
Oh yeah, because if you don't, you're done, and all that time you spent working with your dog is now over.
Yeah, and even on top of that, back then it was like if you have a female dog, it's like it's also a bit less than having a male dog that looks stronger and bigger, and then. So when my female dog was doing well, I was just like, yes.
Yeah. With that time when you were working with that dog operationally, was there any kind of something that stands out in your memory that was like an exciting night that you worked, or something that happened with your dog that just the experience of being a dog handler in a real environment? Was there
so
something
for me, often I needed to work on the streets in Amsterdam. So there are often empty buildings, but there were old buildings from the 1600s. So you would walk through the buildings, and sometimes there will be homeless people, or there will be addicts, or people trying to break in. I've had once, you become really sharp. So I once had that I saw a guy going past a couple times, and I was already reporting it. And I had a look with my dog where I could find him, and then I found him stealing copper. And I was holding my dog back because in the end, your dog can only bite a person when you're backed with your back to the wall.
Okay. Yep.
And he was saying to me, because sometimes people look at you and you're a girl and they're just like, oh, I don't care. And then, so in the end, I tried to keep him on the ground, but he just thought that my dog was wagging its tail because it was friendly, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So when he tried to come for me, my dog bit him in the guts.
Okay.
And then I pulled my dog back. The guy left. I made a video of him. They found him. But in that moment, it's a fine line between being a dog handler and security. And but I think when you have your dog and you work with your dog on the street, and especially as a female, I feel safe.
Yeah.
So, and you just, I think it was one of the best things for me to work with my dog. I loved working with my dog, and I still enjoy working with the dogs. And I think it's just because you have your partner in crime and you know you will be okay.
What was did you have any, because obviously the first bite for a lot of handlers that do patrol work is the scariest one, because you don't know if it's going to, you hope it's doing it for real, but you don't know until it happens for real. What was was that going through your mind at all? Like, I hope it happen. Like, I hope my dog does his job, or you were pretty certain that your dog would engage.
I wasn't certain, but I feel like I felt strong because I wasn't scared. So, and I think sometimes it's a little bit the Dutch boldness, because I'm just like, when I'm in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I will see what happens. Like, Jesus, take the wheel and I'll just go.
Yeah.
And I think my dog also felt that.
Yeah, of course.
So my dog was like, okay, we're going in, and we're just keeping him there. And then when he wanted to come for me, then she was like, no, I'm coming in front of you. So. Yeah, and then, but she did it anyway, so it was.
Did you have to tell her to out, or did she? Was it one of those like she hit and like let go, or was it?
She let go straight away because it was more because he got spooked and then he took off again.
Yep.
And then I need to hold my dog back because there's a fine line with regulations. If your dog, you need to be really in danger that your dog can bite someone.
No, it makes sense. So that obviously after that time happened, you did that job. You got to Australia. Is the time in Australia where you kind of got into the detection world a whole lot more?
Yeah, so when I first came in Australia, it was 2017. I was waiting for my permanent visa.
Okay.
And that's also one of the things, because my parents always said to me like, why are you going to school? Why are you keeping going and get your diplomas? So I kept learning and I got my diploma for management, which saved my ass because I needed to have that one to get into Australia. And I need to have a certain amount of dog handling years. And I need to show my security diplomas. I need to show the operational side that I have done. Yeah. And that's what all the requirements were for me to be special, to come here to Australia as a dog handler or dog trainer. And that's why my frustration comes when people in Australia are doing a security course for a week. Yeah, the dog handling course, and they go out, and then I need to have all these papers that I need to show because I need to work 10 times as hard to come here. Yeah. And then the first year, my immigration officer messed up my visa. So I needed to get out of the country to apply again. So what happened then was, I think in the time my dad had cancer. And I need to leave the country, and it was just like, okay, I bet on Australia. So I want to stay here. My dogs are here now because I got my first pointer in Australia. And then I went to the Netherlands to visit my dad while we went through chemo. Then I went to New Zealand and worked there for 6 months until I heard about my visa, but I wasn't sure. So my dogs were in Australia. My dad was sick. Yeah. And I was so stubborn and passionate about following this working dog journey, but it was almost delusional because I was spending time by myself in New Zealand, training these 30 Malinois and all these other dogs. And at times I would just sit crying in my car, like, why am I doing this for? Why am I just pushing myself so hard because I want this? So during that journey, I lived with a lady that was... had a PhD in animal behavior, and that's opened the world up for me to learn and dive deep into the theory of animal training. And every day I listened to a podcast. It was the Animal Training Academy, and I was just learning all these different methods. And it's because I remember one day when I was at the detection company, I had a clicker. Okay. And it was almost like this magical tool. And I was just there, and I showed it to my boss, and my boss said, "Don't you dare come near my dogs with that clicker." So when I started listening to all these things, I started implementing it for the dogs that were a little bit nervy, the Mellies that environmentally were a little bit unstable. And I started using clicker training, and I was like, holy shit, this is working. So I started diving deep. So for 6 months, the only thing I did was read about animal behavior, learning about the theory behind it, go through all the Karen Pryor books until December 16th. I think that's when I got an email because I wasn't sure if I would get my visa. It was then approved, and then I came back to Australia. Okay. So who was your first, when you got into detection, was it with that pointer that you got when you were here? Yeah, it was Marie. Okay. Oh, so with Marie, I started in 2017. So I got Marie from New Zealand. And I wanted a pointer because I worked with the pointers in detection in Amsterdam. Okay. So it was like non-negotiable. I need to have a pointer. And during that time, I also had a Melly that I was training. Her name was Delta. I think she went to the army, and most people will know about her. And I had a Springer called Annie.
Okay.
So I had Marie, Annie, and Delta, and I started training them. And when I first started training with Marie, I was still subbing the ball in.
Yep.
So I started subbing the ball in because I didn't know any better.
Yep.
So one of the stories I've told many people was that Marie was just on odor, looks back. I had a really good aim, and I throw the ball at Marie, and I tossed the ball in her eyeball. So straight away it was a punisher on the odor, and it was like, holy shit, now I need to fix this again.
Yeah.
So I started with my clicker training, and I had my pig and my goat, because in the first year I thought, I'm in Australia, I'm by myself, and I always wanted a goat, so let's get a goat for my birthday. So Goaty was trained in explosives, and Piggy was trained in narcotics. And I started training my goat and my pig, and I just was trying things. And then I remember I used to double click.
Okay.
And I put the video on my Facebook, and I was straight away getting slagged off by the public, like, oh, do you know you need to use only one click? And I was like, oh, straight away taking it down, because I was just trying. And I was just like, oh, just see how this figures it out. What happened then was I thought, okay, people are making fun of me, so I need to know better.
But meanwhile, you're training a pig and a goat.
Yeah.
They like totally miss that thing. They get hyper-focused on a double click.
Yeah.
Not that you were actually training a pig and a goat in detection, which I find hysterical.
Yeah.
That's the focus.
No, they
did.
gave critique on my mechanical skills. This is fine. It's okay.
Yep.
So then I was like, okay, let's do the Karen Pryor Dog Trainer Professional course. Because there's so much in the dog world about positive side and negative reinforcement. And before we can talk shit about each other, just do the work. So my background is really harsh. It's like a lot of aversive methods. So I've done that, been there, a lot of bad behaviors I had. So it's like, okay, let's go down the path of the all positive training. So did this Karen Pryor course, and positive training is really hard because people don't finish behaviors. Because people don't train, they capture behaviors, shape behaviors, but they don't put them on stimulus control, and they don't finish them and don't fully put them on cue. So if any people want to talk shit, just try and do it yourself.
Yeah.
So go through that, and it's the most silliest behaviors you need to train your dog. But I found it so challenging coming from a background of aversive training and trying all this. And then after that, Bart Bella and Nepopo became really popular. I needed to understand all that. So I did my silver school, gold school, because I was able to educate myself, because I needed the knowledge. Because in the private sector, I work with different agencies. So I need to understand them. I understand them from my background, but also new training methodologies. What are they looking for? And I need to be able to show them, like, oh, I can train a dog and my dog doesn't fall apart if they go to a particular agency that uses this training method, because I need to have sound dogs.
Yeah.
And then I went to a state where I thought, I want to train dogs for Africa. And then it was just like, okay, let's do an anti-poaching course, because I want to learn how to track. So I did that, and it was the most horrendous experience, but I survived. I went through it.
So let's go into that a little bit. So let the people know what the tracking course in Africa was really about, because like you had special operations people in the class with you.
Yeah.
Was it to track the poachers with the dogs? Is that basically the...
No, the dogs were separate, but it was just teaching us humans the skills to be able to track poachers down, because I thought if I understand the human side of things, then I can bring the dog into the whole picture. But there were still dogs there also working. So we did training with them, and it was also really interesting. But I had guys on my course that were ex-army or ex-special forces, all different countries. And I thought, what the fuck have I done?
Yeah.
And the first week was okay. And I got my business license for shotgun, rifle, Glock, all these different weapons. And then we started tracking, and...
so they basically straight up, after teaching you, then put you in the bush, right?
Yeah.
And you're living in the bush, and you're building Burmas, so that way lions and stuff don't come in there
so
and
what
get
happened
you.
was the first Sunday evening, they went through my bag, and they looked at my bag, and they were like, okay, you can't have shampoo, you can't have this. So I was real basic, and I maybe had 2 pants, my underwear, a couple of shirts, that was it. And then they put me in this little house, and the guys were in a separate house, and there were literally scorpions on the ground, and it was just there was no electricity, there was no showers. We were given food, and it was in cans.
Oh, nice.
So, but you ate when you had time. And then that night around maybe 3 a.m., they came down with shotguns. And I remember waking up and I was running into the wall because I didn't know it was coming. And it was all pitch black because we were not allowed to use flashlights, because flashlights, like, it's an absolute no-go. So when I came out, got dressed, and then they said, pack your bags, and we need to pack up all our stuff. So after that, I had PTSD from packing up my stuff in 5 minutes. So I did it the whole course, because otherwise you got in trouble. So I did, they PT'd us until someone vomited.
Yeah.
So we were...
Oh, man. So they had you go out there doing PT. So first they wake you up with a shotgun. You wake up, you run into a wall, because it's pitch black.
Yeah.
Then you have to pack your stuff up in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they say, we're not going anywhere yet. You're going to do PT.
Yeah.
So like leg lifts, push-ups, sit-ups, all this. Running. For how long?
Crawling over the ground. Probably a couple hours until someone vomited. And so there was, I think, when the sun came up. And
so
then
someone pukes and they finally say, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, until someone... so I was with all these guys, and I thought, like, how am I going to survive with all these guys? But it wasn't really a physical game.
And you weren't the first one to puke, right?
No.
See?
No. Yeah. I felt like I was looking at the guys around me, and I was a bit in the middle, because you had the guys that were always really out there, and I think they were sometimes there for the wrong reasons, and they just wanted to shoot guns, and they just wanted to be out there, and they wanted to run up the mountain and show how good they were. But those guys were the last ones they ended up lost at the end of the course. The ones with the big mouth, they were getting rocks in their backpacks. They were the ones that were annoying, that during the whole course they were declining, because they were just too much.
Yeah.
So
and a lot of times in that culture, especially in special operations, we don't want the loudmouths. We don't want you want the confident, silent professional. You don't want the ones that are braggadocious, ego-driven, because they're not going to make the best decisions in most cases. And that's what compromises you. That's what that gets you in trouble. And there's also a saying within the community, we call the gray man. The person's in the middle. They're not the worst, not the best, and they get through because they're able to not get a lot of attention because of not being in either category. They're not the worst, not the best. So it's interesting that even in a course like that, you guys had obviously the same human dynamics, the same things happening.
Yeah.
So going back to the thing, you had somebody puke, and then they finally take you on your first, not say mission, but put you out in the field.
Yeah, so we did training for 3 weeks maybe. So it was at the base camp. So we learned combat training. So we fought with sticks and with knives, and we got our shooting lessons. We learned how to track people. We learned how to work information, doing arrest protocols. We learned each other's footprints, because I could read each other's footprints, who it was, where they went, which direction, how long it has been there. They would wake us up in the middle of the night to do a track outside. So it could be at 1 a.m. You would hear the car coming, and then you would straight away be upright, pack your bags. We didn't have phones. We didn't have any lights. So any basic or any luxury stuff we did not have. So... and then we would go out in the bush, and you were just with the baboons and doing tracks, and they would just try to break you the first 3 weeks. And I remember the first time that we went to the Big Five Park, we went with the cars and we stopped at a fuel station, and that was the first time to eat lollies or candy again, and it was just like the best thing. And I was able to message my mom or see how my dogs were, and it was just like the most luxurious thing. And you don't know how it is until...
It's taken away from you.
Yeah, it's taken away from you. Because even going to bed at night and you only have the stars, because when it was getting dark, you would go and sleep. Because you didn't know what time they would wake you up. And then, so we went to the Big Five Park, and we need to sleep in a boma. So my biggest concern was, I was sleeping in this boma, and it's just a round thing with thorn bushes.
Yeah.
With all these guys all near each other, and I need to sleep with all the guys in the boma. And then when you need to go to the toilet, you need to pee or poo in the bush.
Yeah.
And then the only thing what I had outside the bush were the lions and the rhinos and all the other predators.
Yeah.
So I was just figuring out my way out how I'm going to juggle this, because I just need to figure out how this works. So we went on a lot of we did observation posts. We went on like missions, and we took a lot of snares away, like maybe 300 a day.
Wow.
So we were taking things away where the animals could get trapped in, and sometimes it was more not for the people that were actually getting it because they were hungry, but it was for the people that would sell it on the black market. So it was large volumes, and sometimes the animals that got caught, they weren't
what they were looking for.
Yeah, and they wouldn't collect the animal, and an animal would just die slowly there. So it was just mainly for them. And then I also remember one day it was this big noise in the bush, and then my instructor was like, "Move!" And it was just like a big goat. But he said they will snap your kneecaps.
Wow.
They will just run through your leg, and they can kill you. So you need to move aside and quickly do that. So.
And what was that went by? What animal?
Oh, it was like a goat, some kind of goat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also when we walked in the bush, you would hear the ground rumbling, and it were like the warthogs.
Yep.
And
the warthogs running around. Like I heard of them basically. Okay.
So each night they would, or each day they would pinpoint another leader, and one day I was the leader, and they would put us in these OPs, so observation posts throughout the park. And what happened was, all the big guys that wanted to be in these big fancy towers looking out over the park, and it was really small, so, and they wouldn't wash themselves for 4 or 5 weeks, so it would be really stinky in there, so I'll just let them. And then we went to the last OP, and it was a reservoir, so I thought, that would be cool. It's probably a little hot looking out over a lake or anything. So on our way down there was this big lion laying over the path, and these instructors were like, I don't know what to do. And then they were just waiting for him to get up. So he was getting up, and it just looks like a big cat. And he's just like stretching himself and getting out. And I was like, that's cool. I saw my first lion. 200 meters further, we get dropped in this observation post with the lion there. And I saw them stop and talk to each other. And they just grabbed the shotgun and said, "Here, if he jumps in, just shoot him." And I was like, what the fuck?
Wow.
So, but we survived.
Was that your scariest? What was your scariest moment? Was that the scariest moment?
I think that was the scariest moment, because throughout the night, you could hear the lion come close, and the roar, I could feel it in my body.
Wow.
Because something that was so big, and something that is like actually can put your life in danger, and it's so much more than, I've swum with great white sharks, and it's just like feeling like there's a predator out there that's bigger than you, and it can kill you in any seconds. And it's just walking freely while there's no fence, there's nothing there. So we were just sitting there. And then the other time was that we need to go into the bush looking for snares and just getting lost. It's the most, we didn't have any maps or anything. And our instructor was really like, okay, you need to remember where you walked and where you went. And you need to find your way back. And getting lost in the dark, and then everything looks the same, and it's pitch black, and you were not allowed to use your flashlights, and
no compasses. Could you?
Nothing.
No. Wow.
No. So, and I think that's when I really truly felt fear.
Yeah.
And just not getting lost in the bush.
Wow. All of this just to become a better detection dog handler and tracking.
Yeah, just and then I think when we then actually start doing tracking with the dogs, the interesting part was. Because we also tracked elephants, we tracked rhinos, and then when we implemented the dogs, what I found interesting was the smell of the animals in the park, like the wee of the lion, or just where animals pee. Yeah. Like we get sometimes in Australia frustrated when our dog is eating kangaroo shit. Yeah. Like there you have lions pee, and the dog can smell. It's like a predator is out there. It's something bigger. Like how do you train for that? It's only when the
their biology is going, I don't want to go this way because this thing is, I know this thing wants to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's intense. So you complete that. You come back at this point in Australia because you had your pointer. Had you worked anything as a contractor or professional detection dog handler yet?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of stadium work with my bomb dogs. And during that whole time when I was educating myself and get better, I ran the big pet dog facility. So we had around 15 staff. We started with one dog, and now it has 100 dogs each day, and it's making over $1 million per year. So I was doing that on the side. And I never wanted to be a business owner, but I became one because my parents tried to run a business, but it went totally wrong. So I had a bad experience. It was like, I don't want to be a business owner. But suddenly I was one. And then I started also Canine Bellator when I came back from New Zealand because I needed something that would hold me in Australia. Something where my passion could go in and it was fully mine. So I did that on the side too. So I was training these working dogs up and just maybe 5 dogs a year. And then to Dog Force Australia, we did explosive detection work. We did train dogs for Papua New Guinea to find gold. We trained patrol dogs. What else did we do? Stink bugs in Japan. Termite detection dogs, ESD dogs. So we trained the military police. We did a special covert project. We did biosecurity dogs. So we needed to train 10 dogs that needed to work at the airport. There's so many different things that we did, like narcotic detection, training handlers in the prison. And this was all on top of educating myself and running the pet dog facility and keeping everything in check and hosting seminars.
Yes. I think you lack a little drive. I'm just saying, I don't know, but no, you said something in that list of things, training dogs to detect gold. Is that correct? Tell me about this.
I was really skeptical about it. It was the gold dust. Because what happened was the dogs would go to Papua New Guinea and they would... so people worked there in the gold mines and they would have gold dust on them. They would steal the big chunks of gold. And they wanted to have a dog that would locate that.
So ignore the gold dust, but only alert to the... gold. And it was on persons, so it wasn't like...
and in lockers and etc. But the main thing what they found was that often those people were linked to using narcotics. And then those odors together...
were the better indicator that somebody...
Because I was still skeptical if the dog could really do it. I never went to Papua New Guinea because it's really dangerous there. And I've never seen the operational side, how the dog was getting trained there. Because we had a trainer from the UK go over. But even that, we were getting sent dirt samples with gold dust in it.
I was just going to ask, like, are the training aids like gold bars, gold chunks?
No,
like, did they give you guys like... hey, I need a little bit of gold, I need a lot of gold. I need to make sure the spectrum of odor is appropriate.
It was just the gold dust, and I was also skeptical. And then sometimes that's also a thing with you in the detection.
But you're training on the thing that you're supposed to ignore, right? You technically ignore the gold dust on the people, but only indicate the gold chunks, but they'd only give you the gold dust. Wow, okay.
So then I think you need to look at it from a training point of view. Like, if this is what you have and this is your training aid. So when I went to train a dog on stink bugs in Japan, the bugs would just fly in the car. So odor is everywhere. So if I wanted to send a dog to Papua New Guinea, looking at the odors that I was given, I would rather train my dog on a neutral odor than send it over and then actually have the real compounds or the substances that you need and just train it there further instead of putting the dog on dirt and gold dust, because then the odor is everywhere. So
that's an excellent point. I think a lot of times in a lot of detections and in the raising of detection dogs, we want to go chase this thing, whatever the odor is. So the States, obviously, bed bugs, typical bomb drug. And, I'm laughing to myself with the resurgence of mold detection. Mold detection had been around a long time. I grew up in Florida, and back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of hurricanes. So a lot of houses had mold, and I saw there was some mold dogs out there, and people were going through all the things like, I want to train on this and do that. And what you get as samples isn't necessarily like what the real environment is like. And that's kind of what you're highlighting, the importance of, regardless of whether it's bed bugs, bomb, drug, mold, gold, and stink bugs, all these things. training the dog on the technique of detection on, like you said, a neutral odor that they won't see potentially in their job that they go do is extremely helpful, because then when you go teach them to go find the thing they want, you're doing it in the environment they have to go do it in.
Yeah, and it's more clean, and you have the real odor that you need, because even when we train the termite dogs, you can't just grab termites from down the road, because that's when we went down the path of, and it's and I was watching
Totally
it from a
different termite,
distance,
right?
because it was a different trainer doing it. But what happened was, you can get termites, live termites, out of a termite mound near trees, and then bring them back. But they don't smell the same if they're in a house. And then it's the odor threshold. How big is it? Is it like this big of a canister you're training on, or is it the full wall? So it's better
Totally
off
different.
to sometimes train the dogs operationally in their environment where they need to go to.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on that a lot. And my heart has always been leaning towards, I need to look for or train my dog to find the thing I'm looking for real. And we focus so often on kind of like, I feel like, a false belief of the dog's abilities because of the context we're training it in, or the training aid I have, and all these things that make it look like it can do it. Then all of a sudden you're in the operational aspect, and it's not the same. The context isn't the same. The odors aren't the same. And you hit on something, and Natalie wanted you to talk about this on the podcast, but the difficulty of the feeling of what you do in training isn't really relatable, or it's hard to replicate what you have to do operationally.
Yeah.
So kind of talk about that.
So we've trained dogs for many different capabilities. And even when I work my own dogs, like, I can't replicate the search stamina. Like, I'm not able to do that on a wall. Like, if my dogs need to search the stadium in 35 degrees and people are walking around, there's loud noises, how am I going to replicate that in a shed? And how will my dogs understand that searching is what you're going to do for the next 4 hours and you're not going to find anything?
Yeah.
So for me, often it is the dogs are learning and thriving on the job. And it's when we said about when I did my driver's license and I was training or just driving with the guy, and it's just like I was shit at it until I just finally had my driver's license and I could drive myself. And then after a year, I was fully driving by myself and really competent and confident, because I needed to be out there for a while. And that's what I see with some of the dogs, because even when we trained the biosecurity dogs, there's such a messy middle before the dogs can become operational, because even when they find their first odor, it's not going to look like how we train in the shed. And it might not smell the same. It might be like 5 days old, or it might be sitting there for a while, or the volume might be bigger. Or
it's concealed on purpose in ways that you couldn't think of.
Yeah, and then your dogs may be like, it might be here, but maybe not. We miss that because operationally the dog is showing some sign of behavior, and then we don't reinforce it, and the dog's like, it's probably not what I'm looking for. And in the beginning, say for example with biosecurity, we would have target odors coming past, but happened then is that the dog's starting to focus on the bags. So what happened was we had Peppa Pig bags.
Okay.
So the dog started getting really visual, like, that's how my target looks like. So then we need to throw in multiple different bags, so the dogs weren't looking at the bag. But then again, if the bags are in a certain training shed, it smells different again.
Exactly. It smells like the training shed.
Yeah. So, and we had, say for example, dogs need to find oranges. You have a kid that eats an orange and it's all over its face. That's not the search context. You don't want you to indicate on the kid's face. Like, how are you going to train for that? You're not going to get
a bunch of kids to come put orange on their face and go walk by your dogs in training.
It's like this here, you don't indicate on, you just let that go. And then even the search context of having a cafe next to the baggage carousel, and that cafe has meat or cheese and everything what your target odors are, but you're going to ignore that and you're going to find it on the belt and you're going to indicate there. Or someone that has fresh flowers walk in to pick someone up and you can see the dog already smelling it, but it needs to ignore that and it needs to focus on there.
Yeah.
So sometimes training in the real world, you can't predict what people are doing or what the environment is doing or how it's going to be presented. And we can even try our hardest with replicating it, but
Yeah.
it will.
It'll still have a flaw that connects it to training, no
Yeah.
matter what we try to do. And you're bringing up a thing that I try to share all the time is creativity. And a lot of times we lack creativity because we get into comfortability.
Yeah.
I know what this looks like. I do this. And then we fall into the trap of, well, it feels good. My dog's finding stuff. I'm confident in this. Where I advocate to try to find as many failures now as possible. Like, what am I doing in training? What can I change in training that causes that maybe the failure happens that will mimic reality, even though I know it's still not going to be the same as reality. But I like the term that you use in this messy middle. So tell us a little bit more about how you refer to the messy middle part.
The messy middle, it never looks like how you want it to look like. And it can bring you to tears when you try to get the dog there. Because I remember when we were sending 10 fully trained dogs over to Tasmania. So to get from where we live to Tasmania, it was maybe like a 10-hour drive, plus a boat trip in the middle. So you're driving with a dog trailer and all these dogs, and then we need to acclimatize them into their new facility. They need to chill out. Then we had a trainer train these dogs away from us. We're the instructors. Mm-hmm. So the dogs are not really accustomed to us. Then on top of that, they get a new handler. The handler might be male or female. Mm-hmm. So depending on what the trainer is, even if we can vary different trainers, the dogs are responding differently. Mm-hmm. So you then need to translate it to the new handler. If the handler is a male and has a different voice, so you can have a verbal marker, it doesn't translate to the dog. So, and then especially if the dogs are young and new, they need to pull the confidence out of the handler. And if the handler doesn't know what they're doing, it's really messy. And it goes on for a year that it's just like figuring things out and building up the handler and building up the dog. And some dogs will make it, some dogs won't. Mm-hmm. And it's easier if it's your own personal dog and you want to make it operational. But if you're going to hand it over to a handler and you need to bring them both to a certain standard, it's not even more difficult.
Yeah. No, I love the term because it's so correctly describes what happens. It's messy and it's not perfect and it's going to have these ups and downs, and we have to embrace that messy middle so we get better and learn. But I love as we were talking about through the 2-week trainer course we just got done doing, because we had a very wide, diverse group. You know, we had handlers from the Australian Federal Police, we had military, special operations, conservation, all kinds of different people. And I love some of the videos that you share, and I'll share them on social media over time. But in this day and age where I've been a bomb dog handler, I've been a drug dog handler, and those are what we refer to in the professional world, those are the sexy jobs because it's really good. You're a cop, you're this, you're that. But I tell you what, I love biosecurity because those teams, I mean, nothing to me would make me feel better every day than one, they get a decent number of fines. Yeah. Operationally.
And then training becomes fun because if your dog is finding all the time stuff, you can work with the variable reward system. Mm-hmm. So then you'd be like, okay, I'm not reinforcing every find. And then it's like, okay, we're not reinforcing this one. We're placing the dog off, go to the next one. And then you can play around with that. So you have a dog that's fully confident. And I've seen handlers reinforcing everything the dog indicated, and these dogs, they became machines. Yeah. Because they didn't know it was there. The handler just believed in them, and they were just pulling people out left, right, and center. And it's just like, these dogs were so slow when we sent them over. And I thought, I hope these dogs will make it. But over time, they were a year on the road. And then when I came there, they were almost like monsters. They were just pulling people out, and it was just like, oh, yeah, here. And it's another person, and so confident in themselves because the handler believed in them.
Yeah, we were laughing because like we had both noticed and over the years we were talking that the biosecurity dogs, some of those dogs when you're first going through training, and then sometimes the biosecurity companies want dogs to do sometimes some unreasonable things, which makes the work that much training them even harder. But then, so you start questioning, like, are they really strong enough for this? I don't know how this is going to go. But then because of their operational environment, they end up turning into be all-stars. So dogs people would look at it in, let's say, a drug dog world and be like, oh, I don't know if I want that dog. It's not really strong enough. But all of a sudden it gets put in an environment where it gets lots of fines, super successful, no matter how hard the environment is, because they're screening people, they're screening bags, they're doing all the things, the same, very similar things. And then also these dogs that were viewed as weaker, all of a sudden become probably better than some of the operational drug dogs
sometimes it's
because of
just
that.
persevere and push through and see what happens. And that's a little bit contradicting to what I was saying this morning when we talked about when we're developing dogs and we see this little nerve or because eventually if the dog is operationally and it's getting trained in an operational environment, they become strong. And if they're environmentally stable and they know odor, you can push through because the messy middle, it will eventually, the dogs will become superstars. And also one of the things what I found with biosecurity was the search method or how the dogs search and the intensity is not going to look like what we see online. Like the dogs, they sometimes just stand there and they just scan the people, and it's just like, and then when it hits them, they will straight away go for it, but they don't even need to move that fast. They're just preserving energy, and they just, even for us people, sometimes we want to see the dogs like actively searching, but in reality, it doesn't always look like that. The dogs will find a shortcut how it will work for them, and it will work in their favor. I've seen dogs stand near the baggage carousel, and they're just waiting with their nose for the bag to come past, and they just sniff. And as soon as something comes past and it has a target odor, they hunt it down. Yeah. Because they're not stupid. Why would they spend all their energy sniffing suitcases where they already know there's nothing in there? Yeah. But sometimes we as humans, we want to see that intensity, but sometimes...
Why aren't you checking each bag? I don't get it.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't look like that operationally. Because,
There's that video I laughed where that dog is doing basically what you're describing, and then all of a sudden gets in the carousel and then stands on like the bag as it's going down, like it's this bag right here. Yeah. And they're like casually walking over, take the bag off. The dog like follows the bag off the carousel. It was pretty interesting to see that. And I've you know, like I said, in my stage of life, I would love being a biosecurity handler.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's got to be. Now, what would you say in your detection dog career has been the most challenging or most difficult thing that you've had to go through or train or deal with?
I think the most difficult thing is raising puppies.
Okay, so tell us a little about that.
So even if it's fun and it's the best thing ever, sometimes the difficult thing is that not every dog will make it. And sometimes I think we just need to be open-minded for that. And I think one of the things what I want to give to the private sector is that if you develop a dog for an agency and they're not happy with your dog, don't take it personal. Because sometimes agencies look for a particular thing which you don't see in a dog. Say, for example, when I came from the Netherlands, my standard of police dogs, I thought the best police dogs were monsters. Like dogs that would come for you and redirect, that was my norm. And then I was just like, it was almost eye-opening the first year I was in Australia. And I was just like, oh, hang on. It's not normal because it's just like young handlers. And they're getting put with this monster who just learned to just stay in place by these big, strong Dutch guys. And they're getting this thing on a leash. And if they tell this dog off, it will come back for you. And that was my first time. And then I thought, oh, hang on, this is my standard, but it might not be the standard for everyone. And it was for me a biggest lesson that not to take things personal, because if your dog doesn't make it, and don't blame agencies, don't blame other people, and there will be a fit for your dog, or your dog is just not good enough, and just accept it. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on training puppies on odor? When I say puppies, I'm talking like, let's just say 8 weeks old to 16 weeks old. What's your thoughts? Do you find it helpful to train the dogs on odor? Do you find it's better to wait? What in your experience, what has it been like?
I have put dogs on odor very young, and what I found was that we burned the dogs out. Okay. So one of the trainers I admire is also Hans Verbrugge, and he said becoming too technical too early is killing the drive of the dog, and sometimes you just need to let dogs be a puppy. I've done with my Melly, I did tracking from young age until 6 months. Then I let it sit. And then I did detection and other stuff with my dog. I could always refer back to the tracking because it was just ingrained in my dog. So I can see the value of doing things early development. But I think the main thing what's important is like have your foundations right. Yeah. So we did a project with Simon Prince. And one of the things what I learned from him was we need to build a house. So a house that stays strong. So we need to build the foundation right. So what we need to do is have our communication system, like clear communication system with our dog, teach our dogs how to learn, and have a good reward system, like play with the toys and just have fun. And environmental exposure. Just take them out into environment, and I take my pups to the stadium and let them run around and go into elevators and go on slippery floors, different stairs, and I just want them to be confident in themselves and look at the world like it's a big playground. Because then if they get pushed into an environment that they're unsure about, they know how to manage it and they will be okay.
Yeah. And I'll end the podcast with this question. What has been your most rewarding experience as a detection dog handler? What is something that you're like, I'm so glad I did this, or I'm so glad this happened?
I think sometimes working for the big artists, and I think when I did with the girls I worked with, and we worked for Taylor Swift, and we managed that, and we did ridiculous hours, and our dogs pulled through. And that's where I found that the dogs that intrinsically getting reinforced for certain behaviors, such as search systems, they will pull you through the work, and those are the dogs you can rely on. So I was so glad that we did that job, because it stormed, it was hot, I was so much pressure on me, but the dogs survived, and I was super proud of them and the girls I worked with.
And you guys got tested too. Like they put out a bullet in one of the places, right?
Yeah, and just putting odor out on the
not even telling
cars,
you guys,
and they don't tell us, and the dogs are working for days, and sometimes you need to go with it. And if you're in the private sector, you're exposed, people can test you, but your dogs need to be at a standard that's so high that no one else can say anything bad about your dogs. Yeah. So
no, awesome. Well, cheers first.
Yeah, I will get my wine.
I know, but you get. But thank you for taking the time to come on here.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming to Australia and being part of our training.
No, it's been awesome, and we're so happy we got to do this, and it was fun to do that. First international detection dog school for trainers. And, hopefully in the future, there's even more things we get to do now that you're even building your own business. So tell us, as we end this, how do people find you? You got your new location coming up, right? So tell us about that.
I pursue Canine Bellator by myself. So I will start taking that on and doing all the detection work myself and develop the dogs. And my main thing is I want to educate people and help people to get into a space where I am, because I know how bloody hard it is to get where I am. And I want to give them the tools, and especially I want to give the tools to the females in the industry. So I created a platform that's called She Trains Strong. And that is especially for the females, the dog handlers, the dog trainers that come from a background where I come from, that sometimes you don't know any better and you just listen to the person that says, oh yeah, just yank your dog on the prong collar. And I have the Canine Bellator School, and that is just a baseline between civilians and dog handlers that need to have that little bit of extra help in the middle. Either it's for operational detection or just fun with the dogs, so just have clear foundations for the dogs so they can do specialist roles. She Trains Strong, is that a website or is it At the moment, it's just an Instagram, and I plan my first networking evening this month. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to reach out to the girls I know, dog handlers or dog trainers or people that own a business. So I never intended to own a business, and especially if you start a business, you're doing it because you're passionate about working with dogs, but it doesn't mean you know the whole accounting part or managing staff or building protocols and policies. And I have done it all the hard way, and I just want to create a platform to help other people with it, to just get a better standard. No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So they can find you on Instagram, on Facebook by Canine Bellator, but we'll put it in the show notes so that people can find it. And then also She Trains Strong on Instagram. Yeah. And anything else? Is your new website up and running? No, we're still building it, and we're still getting it. Just like I just left my other business 6 weeks ago. Yeah. And I went head first into the next one. So that will also explode. So it's just so once it's up, we'll do our best to either by the time maybe even the podcast comes out, it'll be in there, or we'll share it, of course. Yeah, thank you so much. No, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Canines Talking Sense, where
It's okay to be nosy.